So for your kind of career in finance, then, a lot of people actually have ideas about what a career in finance would be like. Obviously, we've all seen Wolf of Wall Street and that kind of thing. But actually, what are the practicalities of, what was life as an analyst like, like in real life? How did you find that, if that makes sense?
Uh, that's a really difficult, complex question to answer. And the way when people ask me that, the way that I answer it is to say that when you look at the financial services industry, investment banking, there are two types of jobs in investment banking. One is what I call content or domain expertise. So that's what I did as an analyst. I spent 20 years of working in the city, looking at engineering companies, learning about engineered technology, and you develop domain expertise and you develop content. The more high profile part of the banking industry is execution, is trading, is dealing, it's broking, it's selling. It is all of the things that the industry probably has deservedly got a quite checkered reputation as a result. And that's the reason why the banks get themselves into trouble, and the repercussions of that flow throughout the general economy. I think if you're looking at people who want to understand what it is to go into banking, or go into finance, you've got to make that distinction between doing content and doing execution. Now, if you look at the banking industry today, a lot of that execution is computer driven, or AI, increasingly AI driven. And so there's very little frontline dealing, frontline trading that's done by anything other than a very powerful, very fast computer. So the world has changed a great deal. And the world was changing in the years that I was there, and was changing in the sense that the content and the domain expertise part of the industry was taking second fiddle behind the execution part of the industry. And that's only accelerated. That's just got to be a bigger and bigger and more visible trend. So I find it very, very difficult to advise people. If anyone comes up to me, and people do come up to me, obviously, and say, do you want that they want to get into finance? How should I do that? I find it really, really difficult to answer the question.
I think it's really interesting because it almost the more I kind of go through my career and learn different things, it's quite sad, but when I'm working away, I have Bloomberg on. But I love the way that people source information, and they're often looking for big, it's a seamless segue, but like cultural and global shifts into technology and sustainability and where the metals come from. Or the big one at the moment is a supply chain bottlenecks, staff shortages, COVID, whichever. And then so much of it, again, is trying to guess what's going to happen next, as in what's going to happen with Tesla next year if they can get enough computer chips to do with, because then if they think that they'll do well, they would invest in it. And if they don't, but it's almost, I completely agree that the more you understand about the sector and specifics, it's like I get phone calls sometimes from people who want advice on, do they invest in the offshore energy sector because they're trying to get a feel on company X and is it underpriced? But then obviously within the space of a 45-minute call, you're like, actually, it's not, it's for this reason. But it's that ability to source information and try and problem solve. I don't think that could be done by a computer. I think it needs the gut feel of leadership to kind of learn, understand, and then, kind of move forward, I guess.
Yeah, and I think that's right. When I look at and analyze businesses, I think the way that I look at them is something that a computer couldn't do. I mean, you talked about trying to pick up on the big growth trends. And is Tesla going to be bigger next year than it is next year, or more successful in the future? What I tend to spend a lot of time doing is looking at risks and looking at downsides. So looking at liabilities more than looking at assets. When you look at the businesses within our portfolio, and I think that people will come on and talk a little bit about those, though I can't tell you which of the businesses that we have today is going to be more successful than the other one, which one's going to be bigger in the future. I have absolutely no idea. Have some thoughts on it, but I wouldn't say that I have a particular insight into which one's going to be more successful. But I do know how to check on the liabilities. I do know how to make sure that we don't make big mistakes by falling into obvious traps. So liabilities tend to come with bigger, older, more established businesses. So you've got people liabilities, you've got rent liabilities, lease liabilities. but just checking on what can possibly go wrong is a key part of being successful in the way that I work, I think.